Hey guys, well, welcome to the show. Hope you like that new intro we got. I want to thank NotJay. He did all the music. So there you go, getting a little more professional. Had to flex that. That's pretty cool, I think. Anyway, welcome to the show tonight. Uh, NotJay should be on a little bit. He said he had some stuff going on. He'll pop in when he gets a chance. So I wanted to start off talking about a quick update on the postcards from the front game jam. We have, looking at the website right now, we've got 9 days and 5 hours to finish rating those. And then that will officially close the postcards from the front initial game jam. And then I'll be working with Dietz, like I said before, to get those published. And then we've started the postcards from the front card jam, which goes live in 8 days and 5 hours and change. Currently, 7 people have joined. So that's kind of exciting. Eric is joining us. Hi, Eric. How are you, boss?
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. It's a pretty nice day, actually. So no complaints.
It's a beautiful day here, too.
Yeah. You're on the East Coast, right?
I am. Yep. Boston.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
I can hear it in your voice now that you say that.
Yep.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. I'm sure I have something in my voice. Not sure what it would be, but so finish up on the card jam. So and we'll talk. We'll spend a little time this evening talking a little bit more details on the card jam, answering some questions that people might have. I know there's been some confusion, and I'll try to clear that up. The beauty of this, guys, is because it's a jam. If I change things slightly or allow something to happen that's a little outside the guidelines, nobody's going to be butthurt over it because there's no prizes, right? It's not like somebody got an unfair advantage or anything. Excuse me. So let me just say hi to a few people here in chat. Nagawa, I see, is here. Meandering Mike and Vigilant. Good afternoon, evening, all. So, guys, thank you so much for showing up. And Vigilant, I saw your posting of your card for your card craft, and again, I think that's completely awesome, dude. I love that stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that may fall under what we're talking about tonight, which our subject is going to be build it and they will play, and we're talking about prototyping. But let me just finish up with some bookkeeping here on the card jam. Like I said, we'll dive into some more of the specifics, but it starts July 1st, where you can be designing games now, obviously, and submit you can start submitting games then, and we'll see how many we get. There's no magic number. We get what we get, right? It's what our community does, and I'm looking forward. I've got a game I'm working on with Chris. It's already gone through a number of changes before we even got to the prototype stage. But him and I, on one of his Friday night hangouts, it was just him and I, and we probably spent 2 hours going back and forth and riffing on a design, which is, oh my God, it's so much fun. And then I'm going to put a poll up here soon. I got a request from somebody on Discord to do kind of group playtesting or live playtesting. And we could do this on Tabletop Simulator. And so I put a channel on Discord. I'm calling it the Game Designers Guild, something like that. And the concept would be maybe twice a month, we get a number of us designers together and we get somebody's game and we play test it. And then afterwards, we give our feedback. And then I can record that. I don't think I would do it as a live. I'd do it as a video because coordinating our schedules would be difficult. And I'm thinking of, like I said, doing this maybe twice a month. But it would allow you as a designer to potentially get a game play tested by a number of other, us albeit amateur designers for the most part, but to get some feedback. And if you're watching that, I think there could be some lessons that you can learn from actually watching people play test a game, seeing some first impressions, and then getting some of that feedback. I think would be helpful for all of us to see how the sausage is made, as it were. And then when you're out playtesting, there may be things that you learn just by watching that you can apply to your own playtest sessions. I don't know. Do you see that suggestion that I posted, Eric?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I really like that idea. It's just good to to just gather as many of us that share this hobby and the mentality of creating games and
Yep.
put them in the same room. I think it's always a good idea.
I agree.
If anything, we'll have a barbecue.
How would we do that on Tabletop Simulator? Somebody needs to create barbecue simulator.
I know.
Right?
I'll be there.
I will be there as well. I've got a number of things going on. I want to make sure that they all get the right amount of focus, and I'm still thinking this through before I commit to a schedule or whatever. But I will be talking with some people to see who all is interested. So if you are on Discord, drop in. You'll find that channel. Say hi in the channel that you might be interested in participating and doing some play testing, or you might have a game that you want to have a group of us play test for you, and I can start getting some of that stuff organized. So with that, let's jump into the card jam and just talk a little bit about I put a limit, or let me call this a suggestion, and that was 55 cards with a 11 by 17 inch map if you're going to have a map in your game. And that was a suggestion that I got from a publisher. Now, there's no commitment to publish anything. I just want to be very clear with that. But if you do design within those parameters, then there's an opportunity that somebody may look at that and go, hey, that's a design I'd like to publish. So just keep that in mind. Now, there may be other publishers that have different requirements, different card counts. I know when I was doing some of my own stuff, looking to print, I went to the Game Crafter, and at Game Crafter you can see card counts, and there's various factors. Depending on the machines they use to cut the sheets of cards will determine what your card counts are, and so those vary. Sometimes you'll see game designs where there are 18 cards, and I think that's a pretty standard card cutting machine that will cut 18 cards. I think I may have shown them those uncut sheets that I have of L5R. Those are 100. So now that was done. I don't remember exactly where they had those cut or published, or they published it, but manufactured. But those are 100 cards on a sheet. And so the 55 came from that suggestion, and immediately that we were talking about Chris and I with our design totally changed to fit it into 55 cards. So we talked about limits on designs and how they help us focus on mechanics and getting clean designs. But by no means is that going to be if you come up with a game with 70 cards or 200 cards or whatever the case may be, or you've got a game, say, like Warfighter, which has, 100 plus counters that are used as status markers and things like that, where the core of the game is considered a card game. Those are all acceptable. Again, the 55 and 11 by 17 is more of a recommendation if things happen that you might possibly get published. Okay, last time I'm going to say it, but Um, so, what are your thoughts on that, Eric? Does that kind of make sense to kind of do it that way?
Yeah, for sure. The one I'm designing at the moment, I'm thinking about 52 cards, just a regular, 50, 54
Hmm.
standard deck of cards. Not really sure, if I'll even hit that limit, to tell you the truth, because I'm trying to stay under
Right.
and not go over. You know, and it's good to have those limitations too, because then you really try to streamline, whatever you're coming up with, and
Yeah.
it's nice to have boundaries.
It is, and again, I'd mentioned on Twitter, I'm all for a free range design with no limits. Um, but as Eric is saying, the limits help us focus our designs, and so again, that's why they're there. And ironically, I've been playing Warfighter, and Warfighter has 56 cards
Ah,
deck,
okay.
and I'm like, when I put the Twitter poll up,
Hmm.
I was like, do you scenarios or card games? And here's one where you can do a scenario and a card game, but it actually comes up at 56. So, I guess you could do it at 55. And
Yeah,
obviously, DVG wasn't where I got my information from. But
right.
Nagawa says that's the Swiss Chalet Rosette uh, rotisserie channel
Oh, here we go.
online.
That's what I'm talking about.
And Richard says any limitation actually helps to wrap one's head around the design. One knows how many historical events one needs to find.
That is true.
Yep. Well, I can tell you with what Chris and I are working on, and not to keep it a big secret. When he gets on, he can talk about it. Uh, but we had this initial idea that would have been probably over 100 odd cards, and then when we talked about the 55, it pares it down dramatically, but it does allow for us to focus on some of the core mechanics of the larger idea that we had for our design. And we can always go back and add the other stuff because it's not a question of redesigning the game per se. We got this. If we keep the core pieces there, it's additional content that we can add on to it and make the game broader in scale, but still work with the core mechanics. And I think I had kind of mentioned the history of Richthofen, which is a straight card game. And when I first had put it out was, I was going with a CCG type of thing, and I had hundreds of cards. And at the end of the day, it ended up with a 30 card deck.
Yep.
And there were two; they were identical, and it works. Now, currently, it's at 40. That's because I've added some things. Um, People wanted pilots and people wanted aircraft, where the original design was just a pilot's advantage or disadvantage. And again, it plays in a matter of minutes, it was what it was designed to do. But it's allowed me to add on to it. And like I said, now it's up to um, 40 card deck. And what's interesting is that actually changes the implied math and
Right.
how the game is played, because with 30 cards, you can burn through your deck multiple times to increase the chances of getting certain cards in your hand. And now at 40, I think that's still possible, but not on the same odds, right? Because you've got
Hmm.
33% more cards. And so that's going to
True.
change the speed at which you can burn through your deck. And also, by having more cards, changes some of those combinations. So um, we'll see. We'll see how I like it. But Walkabout, nice to see you, boss. Thanks for popping in. So for me, when I start to prototype, so my games go through stages. I keep little books. I've got them all over the place. And when I come up with an idea, if it's a good enough idea, it gets a book. Okay. And then I jot down thoughts. Next stage or evolution for my design is a prototype. I like to get prototypes built quickly if the game or the design really grabs me. Uh, I find it makes it real. This is an idea, right? This isn't a game. It's just an idea. But when you've got cards or miniatures or poker chips or whatever, you've cut out a map, you got standees, it's now a physical game or a physical idea that you are manipulating and playing with. And you can start, at least for me, I can start to eliminate things. I'll give you an example. I'm working on a solo miniature game based on Assassin's Creed. And I'm calling it Assassin's Deed original. And I haven't. It's supposed to be solo, and I wanted to do the miniatures and go back to the video game and take some of that away. And one of my original ideas was that you would have like a 1-inch area around your miniature that is much like if anybody gets within that personal space, that you could activate, instant kills, or again, thinking of it as a video game, the minions aren't they're there to be something to do. They're not necessarily going to ruin your mission unless you're really bad or you aggro too many of them, right?
They're just NPCs.
Yeah, they're red shirts. They're basically red shirts. And so what I did was, and this is just me, because it's a miniature game, I had to 3D print miniatures, and I had to go get ones that were appropriate for the theme. So I spent, I don't know how much time finding, Da Vinci style, Italian, what do you call it? Renaissance style miniatures that would make for my, for playtesting. And so because I had the 3D printer, I thought, oh, great, I can make all sorts of cool stuff. And I made the bases bigger to indicate that sphere of personal space. And then once I printed them and started to move them around the board, I realized having 1-inch bases or 2-inch, whatever they happen to be, doesn't make well for trying to have your miniature hide in the shadows. Okay. It's like, that concept just physically didn't work. Now, in my mind, it made a lot of sense, right? I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. You don't have to worry about measuring. You got the base there. And as soon as I put it on the table, I went, yeah, this is not going to work.
Well, but that's exactly why I sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But I believe this is why, as soon as you have an idea that you think it's workable, right? You put together the most simplistic type of prototype you can, just to test out the very basic ideas that you came up with, because then you won't waste too much time on things that might not work, soon.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to grab continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I that's why I believe that, creating that first skeleton of a prototype is so important, because then you can already start eliminating things that, oh, in my head this worked. Like today, for example, I was testing out the game. I'm working for the jam, right? And with my partner here, and it didn't work out the way it was intended in my head. But hey, this is part of play testing, right? Because we keep talking about pushing your design, pushing your mechanics, and after you're done pushing, you push a little more and see how far it gets you, and then you will find out on your own, even before any playtesters come along, that certain things just don't work. And do not stay married to some ideas, because you're just going to waste time. You're going to waste research time, and that's a long time. Like
that's a very good point about wasting time, and some things just don't work, and don't be married to it, right? Again, that sphere of influence I thought was such a cool idea, and as soon as I printed it and put it on my table, I'm like, yeah, this is just it's not gonna work.
Well, but
No, go ahead.
No, sorry, keep going.
No, no. I was just adding to what you were talking about. So I went and grabbed my. So this is part of my prototyping. I went and bought the lunch pail
Oh,
for
nice.
my Rosie game.
Oh, I
Right? I
love it.
mean,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and this is where all my playtest stuff is. Right? I got all my cubes. I even went and printed up some of my cards from Game Crafter, and I'll share some of this stuff. And this is the game that uses the Rubik's cube. And
Ah, okay.
so because this is for the resources, right? So if you and the
Right.
resources are in my book that represent oil and rubber and
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yep.
But I'll give you an idea. This was one of my first copies of a contract, what it might look like, and the
Yep.
recipe. You
Yep.
need 3 blue, 2 red, an orange, and a yellow. And
Yep.
that would be a B-17 bomber. And then depending on how many rosies you put on the assembly line,
Mm-hmm.
1 makes 1, 3 makes 2, 6 make 3, and 7 make 4. So there's a point of diminishing returns, right? You want to get the optimal number of people working on your production line.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put 7, you're
Right.
only going to get 4, where 6 gets you 3, and maybe that 7th Rosie can go onto a different assembly line. And these are what I'm calling them recipes, or the ability to have a deck of these that you're going to put into your factory, in this
Mm-hmm.
case, to produce B-17 bombers. And then there's going to be some
Yeah.
flavor checks. And then it's just, I just did one because I needed to kind of get a sense of what that looked
Exactly.
like for the game. And then
Exactly.
I went and got these cards, and this is all that's on it. And
Yep.
I know this is great for for a podcast, but what it is, it's a like a tarot size card,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got 2 sides on it, or on you can flip it, and it's basically a 4 is a type of let me get my fingers right. Okay, so a 4 I think is an aircraft, a 3 might be a tank or whatever. So to complete this government contract, you're going to need 4 tanks and or 2, 1 tank and 2 aircraft, or whatever the case, and it's a 10-point contract. And on the other side is a 7.1, which doesn't need as much, so you can choose to
Mm-hmm.
complete the easier contract or try to do the longer one, which takes more time. And so I built a whole
Mm-hmm.
deck and did all the math, just one, to see if the math works, right? Or
Yep.
the distribution. And these work pretty well. And you see, there's not much to them other than, some numbers and some notation.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to have this stuff pretty early on
Yep.
in the design so that I could see how the contract works, right? I didn't worry about the artwork or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
at that point. Although for my production campaigns, I went and got
Oh, very
posters.
nice.
And these are, you have a small deck of cards
Mm-hmm.
that you can play. And this one says add 1 tank assembly line, adds 1 Rosie until the tank is complete, and without getting into the rules. But I came up with all of these, and I wanted to see them, make it feel more real. So I went and had this deck of cards printed up as opposed to just my notes. And so for me, prototyping is a bit of crafting as well, right? I enjoy, it's going to sound weird, but I enjoy scribbling little drawings, putting my notes on cards, cutting them up. I have an office size paper cutter, with the big blade on it.
Yeah, I like
And
those. The
yeah,
guillotine. The
yeah.
guillotine.
So and I know you can go get. That's exactly what it is, right?
I know.
And I know you can go buy pre-cut blank cards, but I just prefer. I know it's weird. I prefer the craft of cutting them myself.
I do too. Don't tell anyone. Well, I think it's because Mike, also you are a creative guy, right? You like painting. You like assembling. Minis. It's the creativity here. I love doing crafting as well. I think that's also part of the reason why I like games, because games, you're putting things together. You're building an engine to something. Then you
Mhm.
get to craft cards, boards. You're looking up software. Richard here just inspired me to do the whole tabletop simulator thing, and
Me
I
too.
did. I took it and I said, you know what? Let me look into this thing, and I've never done it before, and now it's like I can't think about creating a game now that I won't upload to tabletop simulator.
So I've had a resistance to it because I like the crafting aspect, and I was wondering if that would take away, because it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense to put something on tabletop simulator.
Same here.
And but it sounds like, I mean, it's really just another tool,
Yeah,
and depending on your mindset, it doesn't have to take the crafting away. I mean, you still have to come up and make cards, right? Or whatever the case may be. And um, I'm really curious, and at some point we can have a conversation about um, tabletop simulator, because I've gone in, but I don't know how to upload my artwork, or and I can see where it's loaded. I just haven't dived, jumped into it, and I know Richard is like an expert at it. Every day there's 3 or 4 more games he's posting up on Discord. And by the way, just as kind of a public announcement, all the games in the jam, the first jam. Now we've got multiple jams, which is kind of cool. Um, Richard is going through while he has time, on his own time, and putting them on tabletop simulator, so that one, he can play them, so that we can play them, so they can get more more people playing the game. So if you get a chance, you can pop in the
exactly.
Discord, and if you want, looking for somebody to maybe play one of the games, throw it up in Discord and say, "Hey, I'm interested in going on and playing, Richard's game, or whatever," and see if you can find somebody in Discord to join you and play some of those games. But they're going to be available there, and I'm sure that the designers of each of those games, myself included, would love to get whatever feedback, if anybody's up there playing them. So, again, thank you, Richard, for all that your hard work on that, dude. I totally appreciate that.
Right, and that's the first thing that came up in my head as well as we were talking during that podcast with Richard about tabletop simulator.
Mhm.
Because again, I usually I haven't been playing games digitally for a long time. Like I like board games
Mhm.
because I've tried to stay away from digital games for a long time now. But and then I thought, this can reach more people because a lot of people don't like the crafting part of it, and I understand. Like I understand some people, a printer is not readily available. Maybe you just don't like cutting up, counters and laminating things,
Yep.
and that's fine. It's to each its own. And Rob just said he had crafted the bunny football game.
Oh,
Took
that's what.
photos of the scribbles. Yeah, I downloaded that, Rob, by the way, and I read the rules, and it sounds, yeah, it sounds good. I just need to play it. I'll probably play it this weekend.
Great.
But
The jam isn't even open yet, and
I
and the
know,
game's out there. I love it. I love
I
it, guys.
know, I know. People are excited. We need a hat trick now, Mike. We need a third jam now.
Well, the postcards from the front will happen in December, so it's going to be every 6 months, roughly. There'll
Yeah,
be something
that's
going
perfect
on,
timing.
and
Yep,
then beyond that, I don't want to spread myself too thin, or have where, because I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spread myself too thin. I've got a lot of things I like doing,
absolutely.
and I love doing the game jams. And if we're talking about doing that playtesting thing,
Yep.
I'm think I'm going to tap out on my schedule there, just so I want to do a good
Yeah.
job of everything I'm doing, as opposed
Yeah.
to doing a halfway decent job on a lot of different things. I'd rather, lean towards
Absolutely.
quality. So,
And again, right, there's no limit to how many games you can submit, right?
nope.
So there you go. Hey,
Yep.
designers out there that work fast. Rob, wink, wink.
Well, I
You
think
can do 3 games, you
I
know?
think the record from the last jam was 3 games.
Yeah, I know. I
Right?
don't know
And it's
who
not
the
like
madman was that did that.
Dr. Is it Yves? How do you pronounce that? Yves? Yeah, yeah.
Doc Yeah, Dr. Ives,
Ives.
evil.
Okay.
I
That's
don't
what
know.
yeah. So yeah,
That's right.
he leads the pack with 3. Um, so yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, keeping up with the notes here. Still trying to juggle everything and get used to talking and throwing up the information on the screen. So share your guys' comments
Mhm.
because a lot of good chat going here. Meandering Mike says, "Don't completely throw a design away. If the design is not working, put it in mothballs. Next month, next year, something might occur
Very true.
that will allow your previous design to flourish." And that's a good point. Or one of the things that I've seen happen is um, I've had an idea that gets incorporated into another game. So I may have an original idea to do X, and then I get another game idea, and I go, you know what? I got that old prototype where I was doing whatever, and pull that over, and that becomes a key component of a different game. And that's maybe a discussion we can throw into this on the prototyping is, and it's not really prototyping, but
Hey,
theme or
Charles.
um, what do you want to call it? Theme or mechanics, right? On when you design games, which how do you go? And I'm kind of more on the theme first drives, and then I try to figure out a mechanic. But that's not
Me
always
too.
true. There's
Me
times where I
too.
just want to do a mechanic, like the card. Obviously, cards is a mechanic, just
Mhm.
not what mechanic, and then you can put a theme around it. So
Well, that goes with the who came first, the egg or the chicken, you know?
yeah, yeah, that one I
Sometimes,
don't know.
you know, I go for the theme first as well. Usually it's something I'm already thinking about for a long time.
Yep.
I don't know if, because we have things we like more or less sit in the back of our heads, and I
Oh,
have a
so I guess there was
tendency.
a question from Meandering Mike that I might have passed. Oh, here it is.
Ah,
Sorry. Let me answer this. Cards only or cards and dice? So um, for the card jam, cards should be the main mechanic or carries the weight of the game. So you can have dice, you can have counters, you can have other components. Um, and this goes back to that I don't know how to define it, but when I see it, I can recognize it. And if you design a game and look at it and go, well, that's a card game, even if it's got a map and you're moving hex counters around, but you're doing resolution or activations or orders or whatever your mechanics might be are card driven, then that fits into the theme. And much like the postcards from the front, I'm going to use a very loose interpretation because I don't want my biases to hamper your ability to design. Now, obviously, if you've got a game that doesn't use cards at all, that's probably not one that's. And I hate to say I don't want to see your designs because I like to see all designs, but we have to draw a line somewhere with some of these. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Mike. That you can have dice um, and counters and whatnot as well. And then I think I saw this. Devin had stopped by. Thanks, Devin. I don't know if you're still in the crowd, but if you are, thanks for popping by. What is that? Okay, that was the question there. I'm just going to get caught up with a few of these comments, guys.
hmm
Says so Rob says I've heard that to get playtesters you need a good looking prototype. But to me it feels like such a waste designing everything up pretty when you know it's going to change so much. And I'll need to redo it. So I think that's a yes and a no. Um, it depends on your audience. For a while in San Diego, we had a design group when we would meet in person. And it was there, we're going to bring our prototypes and we're going to play test each other's games. That audience didn't care what the games look like. It was more about what's your theme or hey, I want to see what Mike's doing, I want to see what Joe's doing, and play the game. So in that environment, the prettiness of your prototype was not that important. When I would go to local conventions, and there's a handful of them, the theme for Mythic is Bigfoot, and that would draw people in because they, oh my God, Bigfoot, that sounds interesting. And we've got some art on the cards. I don't really consider it that pretty, but it's more than just some scribbly notes on some cards. So it's not like your first cut at a prototype. I had cards actually printed up in a box, and so I guess it was pretty, but I didn't see it as pretty. I was trying to get a sense of the cards and how how it physically played, because that's to me part of prototyping and playtesting is to get a sense of the physical feel of the game as well. Back to that 1-inch personal space on the minis, physically it just didn't work.
Yep.
I mean, the idea was still good, or I thought was good. And so I don't know if it has to be pretty. Now, going to our game nights where there are a bunch of published games, then I think the prettiness comes into play, because these are people that are there, they're socializing, and yeah, theme I think can draw somebody in, but if your theme is more niche, then maybe the prettier the prototype, because again, there is a tactile feel to your game. And I think some designers don't, be careful how I say this because I don't want to offend anybody, but I think some designers don't think of the tactile feel of their games when they're designing it, and how that comes into play. And maybe you don't need to with certain types of games. I mean, hex and counter games are hex and counter games. You're going to, other than the tactile feel of how many counters can you stack without knocking over your stack of 32 counters or something crazy like that, that obviously would come into play there.
Definitely. Oh, sorry.
No. So I was just saying what Rob said there. That's why I'm saying I think depending on your crowd, that may or may not come into play.
Yeah, I definitely think it has to do with the audience there, because if you have the right audience, they won't care. They just want to either help out. Of course, if you bring into like a mass marketing place, people might be a little more judgmental because most of them want to see a more finalized game. But to tell you the truth, I believe that people that dislike prototypes, they are not even gonna be around the area if you're showing up, with a prototype in hand. And the people that like prototypes, they'll play anything. They don't care. Especially if it's like a group like we have on Discord, for example.
Yeah.
I believe everyone there is willing to play whatever. For example.
Yeah,
it really depends on the audience.
You bring that. It's a valid point, because that's a community we're building of designers.
Yeah.
So you use this term like-minded. We all have ideas that we want to play that maybe don't look pretty, and when we see somebody else's, like if I'm looking at something you're doing, Eric, and by the way, your games look beautiful. The stuff that you've done, I have no issues. I can only
thanks,
imagine.
Man. I tried.
No, well, you can tell. I have to laugh at this comment from Richard, because he's talking about the tactile character of our design projects. So also additional reason to make prototypes. I went on my little, I don't want to call it a rant about the tactile feel and blah, blah, blah. And then Richard had already made that point 10 minutes ago. So thank you, Richard. So Rob says, I crafted the bunny football game, took photos of scribbles, and made the TTS files. So crafty TTS. Yeah, like I said, I haven't got into it as much as others have, but I know David Thompson almost exclusively, and dare I say, from my understanding, exclusively uses Tabletop Simulator for all of his designs and all of his work. And he does a lot of games with co-designers. So that totally works, right? Because you don't, if you make a change to a prototype, I'll give you an example. I don't have um, Mythic on Tabletop Simulator, and there's like 3 or 4 cards I want to change. And every time we play test it now, because I spent 50 odd bucks on a physical copy, a couple physical copies. Um, if I play test it with somebody, I have to go, well, no, that's really not the way. We made changes. Where I think with Tabletop Simulator, you can just go in and make those changes fairly quickly, and then share that stuff and have your latest version of your prototype available.
It's a great tool to do that. Now that I understand tabletop a little better, it really is.
Yeah, I still have a hard time just navigating around, just getting a feel for the
Yeah.
3D aspect. But I mean, that just comes with
Hmm.
time, right?
Yeah. No, I'm still learning as well. Um, but hey, from someone that didn't know anything about it 2 weeks ago, that's
Yeah.
a small step there.
Well, and I think the card would lend itself perfectly, this card jam. And one of the things is we're going to make sure that all of the games that are submitted in the card jam are going to be on TTS, so
Uh-huh.
that um, we learn and we pivot. And so, and I think going forward with all the game jams, we're going to make sure that either the designer or myself or whoever will upload all of those entries into TTS and put the links up on the itch page, so that uh,
Hmm.
people who don't, so maybe look at a game, oh, that'd be really nice, I'd like to do that, but like in my case, I don't own a printer, not for any reason other than I just don't own one.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for me, I've got to go down to the office supply store and print up whatever I'm
Sure.
going to do, print and play. Where with
Yep.
TPS, you don't have to do that.
Yep. Yep.
So
Can I definitely see the value in using TTS, like that. It's very helpful for sure.
that kind of brings up an interesting thing here. It says I need to put a vid on my channel digging into all the bits and bobs I acquired for prototyping. I never really thought of it that way, but when I do model building or your kit bashing, right, you save things because you might need that gear looking thing for a base on a miniature or something.
Hmm.
And yeah, I basically have the same thing. I've got a bunch of stuff that I can kit bash a design from uncut sheets, big not construction paper, but poster boards, to stacks of colored 8.5 by 11 kind of card thickness paper, to just plain white stuff, and dice up the yin yang. So I always have something on hand so that I can prototype something fairly quickly. I mean, do you
Yeah.
have a nice little collection of bits and bobs as well?
Oh God, yeah. I have I went to what was it? Staples
Yep.
once, and the Staples close by to me was shutting down, right? So they had like everything was like phew, deeply discounted, 75%, 80%. So I got these boxes. Um they're like 3-inch boxes for like mailing documents or
Okay.
whatever they're called. Um and they're like what, 8.5 by 11. So they're very small, and I saw them at the store. I'm like, I think I can get good use out of those. Guess what I did? So I bought like 12 of them, right?
Yes.
And so what I did is, as I have these print and play games, because that's what I used, you know, uh,
Mhm.
that's how I used them before. I just store every single print and play I purchased or put together inside one box and then name them.
There
You
you
know,
go. That's kind
keeps
of
it
like the
nice and
notebook.
organized. Right. And now what I do that with the games that I come up with, and I have two of these boxes filled with dice, card sleeves, anything and everything I would need for a quick prototype, right?
Right.
in 1 or 2 boxes. That's it.
Okay.
Because for my mental health, I guess, I have to have things organized in a certain way that I know exactly what it is, where
Mm-hmm.
it is, and it's easy to get to. So if I need 8 dice right away, or like in Jay's game, NotJay's game, 24, I go to 1 box and I have 24 dice there.
Right.
Uh,
I have a
so I
bag full of dice. Huge.
so Mike, I really believe that if you keep yourself organized, that'll also show in your games as well. It'll expedite the process for you in a way
Mhm.
that you remove all the static things, and you have everything you need right there, and it'll just make you work on the game and not think about the outside things too much. Oh, where can I find dice? Oh, where can I find card sleeves? You know what I
Okay.
mean?
You're shaming me, dude. You're shaming me.
No, no, I'm not shaming anyone. It's
Oh,
just, I'm
I am
sorry, I'm
so
weird.
no, you're not. You bring up a valid point. I can't tell you how many times I've had an idea and I'm running around trying to find a notebook, and I'm so
Yep,
OCD that my design stops until I can get that notebook, or my
I
design
know.
stopped until I could print those minis out. And that's just me.
Yeah,
But yeah, when you're disorganized, you spend time running around trying to get organized. And to your point, not working on your design.
yeah. Well, because
Yeah, you
I
shame me,
think
dude.
that goes hand in hand, with the Mike Diddy that was when the dry. That's fine.
They were on the Compass had a show this evening. I was watching a little bit of it before we went on.
Ah, okay, cool.
So they did a drawing. At some point, maybe I'll do a drawing. I don't know what I'd do a drawing of. I mean, I'm sure I can come up with something, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, Devin's still here. Hey, Devin. And I'm slowly getting caught up with some of these comments, guys. So
Yeah. You still haven't told us what game you and NotJay are working on.
well, I was going to let NotJay kind of talk about it because I did the tease before
Yep.
we struck it down to the 55 card, and that was right after we had our little 2-hour brainstorming
Hmm.
session. Which, oh my god, I love when us creative types get together and riff with each other because it just elevates our thought process, or at least for me. I just feed off of doing that. In fact, the July, what I'm going to call the July Jam, which is this card jam now, the current one that starts in a week, 9 days, 8 days. That might rotate each year to a different theme because I've got other ideas of things that I'd like to see game design jams on. But again, I don't want to have one a month, right? I mean, I think that's a bit overkill, at least for me to organize. I mean, if somebody else wants to take it on, I'll totally support them and be on board with it. And I kind of lost my train of thought there where I was going, but when we were talking and you were asking about NotJay's game, we had just spent about 2 hours just riffing with each other and what if we did this and how about this and how about that, and that's why I went on and kind of teased a little about this game's going to blow you out of the water, right? So you can imagine what Chris's expertise is in, and that comment is a little bit of a clue, right?
Richard, we want to see your pencil writings on a loose piece of paper.
We
We
do.
want to see it. That's okay. No worries here. No judgments here.
I like to see, because it's kind of to me, especially early prototypes are very much what you envision in your brain, and your best way to communicate that is when you scribble things down, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Again, so here's my Rosie book, right? And one of the things in here on the very first page, let me make myself large here, if I can remember which one it is. Hold on. So 5 is ships, 4 was tanks, 3 is aircraft, 2 is munitions, and then here's the different colors that come up on the Rubik's Cube for the resources. And that's the very first page. And you see, I've got them all in perfect squares. And I used to be a drafter, so I've got it all lettered. And I got to do it in pen. Yeah. So we're talking about having things in order. I'm messy, but when I actually get onto my designs, there is a sense of cleanliness or order there. Now, Hexy had said something earlier I was just going to comment on. He says he doesn't mind play testing a scratched out prototype if it has potential. And he does a lot of play testing for some of the publishers, especially the ACW stuff. But there's just a little insight that, again, if the design or the theme is catchy or can draw you in, then the play testing, because I think, and I can speak for myself, and Jeff, if you want to kind of elaborate a little bit on that. But I'll just get through some of these comments. What you have in your mind when you're looking at somebody's prototype, you can fill in the blanks, right? You can just say, oh, well, okay, maybe it isn't pretty, but I like this theme. I can see that happening. And in your mind's eye, the theater of the brain. Oh, cool. Oh, he's hiding behind us. There we go. Nice. And is this the game you're working on now? So, Eric, you're muted.
So this is the U-Boat game.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And
oh, invisible. There it is.
Yeah. And so just so you see, sometimes, we just jot ideas down, and most of it did become the final product.
Oh, look at those sketches, dude. You're a bit of an artist.
I wouldn't call myself that, but but just so people can see, and this is like...
Okay, I have to... No, I won't. I'll pass. I'm not going to make a crude joke.
This is like the sort of a thing that sometimes we got to put together just to... that first idea there,
Yep.
And this is like, because I wanted to make it to size as well, so I could understand what kind of real estate I had for the design jam. And so this is like a 5x7, watercolor tote book.
Yes, Richard, please.
That's how we
learn. That's how we learn.
I apologize. I showed my face for a little bit there.
I said you were trying to hide behind your sketch.
But hey, we're sharing here, right?
Yeah, well, because then you know what will happen is people will go, dang, handsome guys design games too.
Yeah.
Now, Richard's going to solve beat. He's a good looking guy.
I know. He does.
Hi, Skelly Gremlin. He says, I'm more forgiving in my judgment of those loose pieces of paper and pencil doodles as play testers. If it looks and feels polished, my brain expects gameplay and mechanics to be polished and refined too. Hey, that's a good point. I didn't actually think of it that way. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. I can see your point there, Gremlin. If somebody shows up with a fully polished looking game and it has not been tested, or it could fall apart and you can lose interest as a play tester fairly quickly because you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, they put so much time and energy into this. And if they hadn't and it's all looks, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I fully agree.
So I have a game, again, talking about looks and just the crafting of things on my prototype. It's called Kilos. And if you've ever played Sheriff of Nottingham, the board game. It's a game where you're trying to smuggle fruit into like a fair or the market. And jokingly one night I said, oh, that'd be funny if you were trying to smuggle kilos. And somebody kind of challenged me to design the game. And so I have. And in the process, and the kind of the next stage, and you see this, right? And is the box. I go down to the local liquor store and I buy cigar boxes, empty cigar boxes for like $3. And so a game goes from idea to notebook to a prototype that goes into a cigar box. And once it's in a cigar box, it's kind of like a real, that's when it's really real. And so with the Kilos game, I spray painted my cigar box white, wrapped it in saran wrap and put tape on it so that the top opens, but it looks like a kilo because I do silly stuff like that. And that's a fun game. It's got a glove, because one of the things you can do in the game is you can inspect body cavities. And we'll share that game at another time. But
Nice.
yeah, it's actually fun. It's a fun game. Most people think, because it's a little on the edgy side on the topic, because basically if you've played Sheriff of Nottingham, everybody takes a turn as the sheriff, and as that rotates around, everybody else becomes the smugglers. And so in Kilos, everybody gets an opportunity to be customs, and then everybody represents a cartel that's trying to smuggle kilos. And I don't know why people think it's a game about drugs, but it's just a smuggling game with kilos, and I use white cubes, and I don't get the connection there. Because that was a joke. Nobody's laughing. Yeah, but that's actually got some pretty cool that one I'm actually proud of, because it's got some really cool and interesting mechanics. And that, again, that'll be for another day. It's not a war game, obviously. It might qualify as a card game because it uses cards quite a bit. But so what does Charles say here? When I was cleaning the garage, I filled a 3-ring binder with a few hundred loose sheets of lined paper. Got 3 decks in the garage, and one of them small office supply store. So Charles, do you design games? I know you play a lot of games, but I didn't know if you design games or not.
Charles designed huge RPG games, and I mean,
okay.
Have you seen the stuff he puts together? For his D&D campaigns?
No,
there?
I haven't seen any of his D&D content. I've got to go dig.
Yeah, he's got a lot of content there for that stuff. So he must. If you can make scenarios, you can design games. Absolutely.
Oh, my day job is I write software. Oversimplify it, but it's the same kind of thing we do, right? Yeah. So what does Vigilant say here? I've been told that to suggest an idea to a manager, write it on a napkin, even if you have it done. Oh, okay. That way the manager feels more involved. Perhaps this principle can work for playtesters too. So maybe take some notepads like this and pass it around for the playtesters to jot down notes while they're playing. That actually is not a bad idea. If that's what you meant, I'm going to use that next time I go to a live playtest session, is to just ask people to jot down whatever. Because they might have something they want to say, but the game's playing, and then they forget it at the end. So that could be, that makes a lot of sense. And the John, it says, walkabout game. It says, I get my best ideas in the John at 3 a.m. and I have a notebook in the bathroom. There you go. That totally makes sense. Like I said, mine are scattered throughout the apartment, and I even keep one in the car, just on the off chance that I come up with something. And I will use my phone with the recording to just jot down ideas if I got nothing else, so I can at least go back and remember what I was thinking at the time. And again, from notebook I don't consider that. That's part of the, for me, that's idea generation. And from idea generation to play testing, I think the key next step is the prototype. And I'll say it again, with that miniature, that having that 2-inch base or whatever it was, proved that that concept that I had, that I thought was so cool, it wasn't. Oh, hold on. Sorry, Jeff. I'm moving a mile a minute, my friend. Jeff, if you'd like, there is a link in Discord if you want to pop on and talk about kind of your experiences dealing with as a professional playtester, but somebody who's play tested a number of different designs that probably come to you in various different flavors. I saw you just recently did a video where you were play testing, I think it's Dunkirk, and that's all on Tabletop Simulator, and you're talking about how that's a new experience for you. So if you're still out there, my friend, feel free to pop in and we can listen to what some of your thoughts are. That might be a little easier, and I can slow myself down. Oh, you're welcome, boss. Is this true?
It is true.
Okay. Hey, we see his face. So we can now fill in the blanks. I'm going to go back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a snapshot of you. I'm going to merge it in some artwork with your brother, and we're going to give you your own.
Have chat GPTM or whatever it's called. Put us, yeah, you know.
And that's going to be you from now on. No matter what you look like, whatever it comes up with is going to be you.
Yeah. So let me do something here.
Right? Cigar boxes are underrated. I did for a while. I actually was crafting. Not Diego. I love it. Hey, and when he leaves, the show will be San Diego.
There you go.
All the puns. Okay, so he's talking to Meandering Mike. I have to pause because my last name starts with an M. So when I see MM, and then Meandering Mike has kind of got my moniker as well. But yeah, cigar boxes are great. Like I said, I use them as kind of one of the stages of my designs.
Yeah, those are good size too. Good size boxes there. They don't come around so much for me.
Oh, really? Well, okay, if you go to some of the smaller liquor stores, cigars are a big deal these days, I guess. And so it's pretty easy. I shouldn't say most, but if you go to, say, it's 7-Eleven, you won't find it. But if you go down to your mom and pop liquor store on the corner, and they sell cigars, there's a good chance that they may even have empties in the back, or some of them actually sell them because people use them for crafts all the time. So that, and again, now you can buy them online, but people want way too much, and you got to pay for shipping. And I literally can get good quality cigar boxes for $3-4 tops.
Nice.
Hey, there we go. Hey, boss.
Hey, it took me enough time to find the damn link in your 75 channel Discord.
I know.
Dude, I don't say no to anybody when they come up with a suggestion. That's why there's all those channels.
It works. So I found it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for popping in. And sorry, I asked a question and then
flew right by it. And to think that we were born in the same state. No wonder you moved so far to the damn West.
Hey, the problem is that sometimes it takes me an hour after I shut down to go to sleep because the brain is still spinning.
Ticking, right? I got you.
Yeah. So, like I said, I know you just did a video on Dunkirk and you were using Tabletop Simulator, but I've heard you talk and in some of your videos, you do a lot of play testing for a lot of people. So your thoughts on prototypes, I'd love to hear it from, straight from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Well, I mean, okay, so, I'm playing Dunkirk on Vassal, and that's
I said Tabletop Simulator, my bad.
That's sort of I guess a remake. Well, that game has been in the brew since I think it was approved by Legion Wargames back in April of 2017, and it's still been in development.
Yeah.
And Herman had sent me a Most Fearful Sacrifice out of goodness of his heart last year. I figured, I owe him something. I could probably test play something for him. So it's kind of cool because I've got the Wilderness from GMT GBACW,
right?
And I had to print those maps and make my own counters.
Oh, really?
All right. Then I've got Devin and them sent me this Napoleonic game. So I've got that one, which is it. When you look at it, it looks like this is the fully boxed version you're going to get right off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything is in there. The tray in the bottom of it, all the stuff is nice. Whether it is or not, I don't know yet. And then I've got the digital file for this Dunkirk game that I'm playing on Vassal. So I'm getting 3 different looks at 3 different games on test playing. And I mean, Scala was hitting it on the head too. I don't. If you're trying to find out if a game, if it's maybe a new rule set or something, and you want to check out the functionality, you know what? Okay, don't necessarily have to waste your time on polishing that map. And if you want to, that's fine. But what happens if you created something and you're the developer? I'm not a developer, so I don't know this process.
Uh-huh.
But then you realize in your mind, damn, this is actually crap. Then I don't know. One of you developers can answer that question. Was it still worth the pain and all the work you put in to make the game? And then you realize it's really not going to take off.
Well, individual mechanics or components, sometimes and I'll speak for myself. Yeah, it must be sugar cubes.
I'm clipping, sorry.
That's okay. Don't be sorry. You have to have a physical thing to see that it's broken or doesn't work. And again, the base is on those miniatures. In my mind's eye, as I'm thinking about it and going, oh, you don't have to have a ruler. You'll just have this circle on your base. And oh my God, that'll be cool. And I've never seen anybody do this. And now I know why. It's too big. It doesn't work as a miniature game if you want to be able to move it around a board with a 2.5-inch base that's just for a single, and that was like all the miniatures were going to have that. So very quickly, after I spent 6 hours printing up 24 of them and I put them all on the table, I went, it doesn't work. And you don't find that out unless you're smarter than I am, and there are a lot of people that are, without a physical mistake. Or I don't want to call it a mistake. It's a discovery, right? You do that.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is gonna come from my take on test playing. And I actually was having this discussion with somebody who's not even a gamer today, but they completely understood what I was saying. If you give me a game and you're asking me test play it, well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to test play it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you rather see if you were someone that you hear this new title's coming out? You're just a gamer. You just play. And you're trying to make a decision on purchasing this brand new game, maybe kickstarting it or P500 or pre-order, whatever it is. Would you rather see somebody just talking about how pretty the rule book is and how square the counters are and how, ooh, look at the shiny map? Or would you rather see somebody playing the game and getting the sense of what the game's like from their emotions?
Oh, totally. I want to see you play the game. I want to see what, again, I've said this before, and I think most of us, and again, I'll speak for myself, but I think most of us as designers, we design for the experience, right? The experience is important. And I've said this before about when I watch you talk about some of the games you play, you do your reviews of the games you're playing, and it comes across as a battlefield reporter, right? There's an experience there that you are bringing. And as a designer, if I can see somebody that plays the game that gets into the theme or gets into what we're trying to do and the rules and the mechanics, and now every now and then you might get a mechanic that you want somebody to go, oh my God, that's a cool mechanic.
Right.
But for the most part, you want to hear them talk about their experience of playing the game. And if something doesn't work, then it's like, well, I had a problem with that and I couldn't find it in the rule book. That's important to know. But for the most
bet
part,
you there's a couple guys in this chat right now that have maybe bought a game or two because they liked the way I sounded talking about it.
oh,
And let me tell you something. When I go back and check my videos, just out of the random once in a while, I'll go watch one and I'll listen to it. I'm like, uh-oh, you did not sound like you were thoroughly all over that game. And it's funny how that comes up, because to me, that's my golden goose scale of selling whether a game is good or not. Because I mean, yeah, I'm looking at rules and I'll scratch my head about stuff. This Lock and Load, this Napoleon game I'm working on right now, Terry Doherty is the designer of this game, and he worked on some Labatai stuff and other stuff. And Devin set me up with him on Facebook, a messenger, and I messaged him, and I'm thinking, because I've never looked at one of these developers in the eye. I've never met one face to face. And I'm wondering, God, is this guy some arrogant, pompous asshole that I'm smarter than you because I can create games? And I'm finding they're not. Bruno Sinigaglia did all the Bastogne games, the Battle of the Bulge games. I got a chance to talk to him. It was just on a phone call. But I'm like, damn, this dude's awesome as hell. Well, Terry Doherty is the same way. He is sending me constant feedback and answering my questions in Messenger. And so now I'm starting to get, and of course, a Lock and Load, I got Deb or even David Heath or even some of the guys that do the design work there. And GBACW, well, I'm going to meet almost all of them again here next month. So,
well, I would call you kind of a play tester extraordinaire. One, because of your passion for the games that you play, but especially when it comes to the, say, GCABW, you know the rules, right? So if you're playing a game that's in that particular line, it's not like they have to, as a designer, you have to worry about explaining some of the basics, right? Like how to ride a bike. Now, this guy knows how to ride a bike.
right.
It's more of, we've got an experienced gamer who's going to give us feedback on, hey, that scenario doesn't quite work, or that addition you made conflicts with some other part of the rules. Because as designers, we all forget rules to our own games. And sometimes we'll put something in that's contradictory, even though we don't see it right away. And sometimes a playtester points it out, and then you go back and you feel embarrassed, like, geez, I knew that. It's my game. How did I create something that contradicts like that?
Well, I heard Ted Racer on Ardwolf's interview a little earlier. It's called, like, I happened to turn it on just at this one time, where he admitted he gets his ass kicked in his own games by other players constantly.
Yeah.
Look, I would say outside of the guy that started playing Squad Leader when he was 2.5 years old, and that's the only game he's ever played, there's nobody out there, I don't care who you are, that can remember every rule that's in a game. I don't care how many times you play it.
Yep.
Yep.
And you can still master a game system,
yeah,
even though you got to go look at the rule book.
Yeah, well, especially the more complex games where situations don't come up every single time you play the game.
Right.
Right. I mean, or some scenarios don't have certain components or situations that are going to arise. And so you have to pause and go, oh, how do we do that? And that's in more of our discussion when it came to the playtesting side of things, which I think prototyping and getting into playtesting there's some overlap there, obviously. But to your point, yeah, they go hand in hand, and it's very easy to forget some of the rules. And as a designer, and I saw the same thing where he's talking about, and he made a very good point. He says, if you're always winning your game, or you've designed a game that can always be won, then that's probably a poor design.
Yeah. And of course, we also had this discussion too about why would you design a game that the only outcome is historical? Why?
Yeah.
Why? What did McMurray say to me that night? If you want that, just go read a damn book about the battle.
I was going to say, watch a movie, right?
Yeah.
You do the same thing over and over again.
Why do it?
Well, going back to what you're talking about, playtesting games there. I was just talking about to my partner the other day. And because I play test some games, not a lot. Usually I go for the low to medium complexity games, right? Because I like smaller footprint games that can be played in under 3 hours. That's usually my go-to
Smaller
games, right?
footprint game, 3 hours.
Yeah. But anyways, so and while you perusing through Discord there, through the different whatever games are being made by so and so companies, which I won't name it here, right?
Mhm.
So on some of those games, you go there looking for information about the game, right? Looking because maybe you have questions, and then you get into the channel, and guess what? There's no gameplay. There are no
Right.
mechanics.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Because
You're right.
people are focused on the history of the game, which is fine. We all love history, right? We're talking about war games. We're all, involved with war games. It's fine. But you know what? I want to play test the game. I'm gonna, I want to know the mechanics, and I want to see questions about the mechanics. If it's just a forum where we are discussing, who can be the farthest history-wise, right? Oh, I know more than you. Let me expand here and write, a 20-phrase paragraph.
Yeah, but there's a place for that as well, right? I mean, there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that as well.
Hey,
real quick,
nothing
let me
wrong
answer
with
your
that.
brother's question. Diego
Yeah,
says,
sorry.
"Do you guys ever get some inspiration by mechanics from video game strategy games?" So that is exactly the inspiration for my miniature game, taking Assassin's Creed and doing Assassin's Deed. Right, is I want to take that video game. So I've actually looked for miniatures of hay bales and carts, and I'm trying to find tall buildings that I can have rules for diving off and doing the whole alert system, because it's going to be a sneaky style of game, and it's solo play. And so to answer your questions, most definitely I do. The Kilos game is my interpretation of a very popular board game. The Rosie game comes from another board game. So I find inspiration both original concepts and taking some design that already exists and adding to it or creating something from it. In fact, I would even recommend, if you're new to doing games and want to design a game, take a game that you enjoy playing, that you know the rules, and reskin it to some theme that you like. And what you're going to find is, as you start to do that, you're going to start making changes and modifications, and pretty soon that game's going to look original to you, because you're going to
know anything about that process.
No.
There's a John. Of course, my computer war game collection is just as big as my regular game collection.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a game I played that was a John Tiller game. It's called France 1940, and the company pushed it up to a gold level. Really made it a nice looking game. And there's an action in there at Ibanimel, at the prison where the German commandos dropped in and took that thing because it was just a rock in the middle of the river.
Uh-huh.
And every time I play that, these commandos go in there, they're just real small units, and they devastate this complex right off the bat. Now, this is at an operational level, so you don't know the details. And every time I play that game, I'm like, damn, somebody needs to make a game with this type of stuff. And I keep thinking, the game you saw me playing on Vassal the other night, did you happen to look at the map?
No, I was actually listening. I was wandering around trying to do.
Okay. So it's an area and a point-to-point movement game in one. Does that even strike you as the type of game that I would play?
No.
And I'm having a blast with it.
Well,
I'm having so much fun, I'm resetting it and going to start over again.
You know, I will say this, though, Jeff. I think you've expanded your games
Horizons.
From a very niche to now you're painting more miniatures and you're doing different style of games. So, I mean, cut yourself a little bit of slack.
Who are you, and what'd you do with the
real
Jeffy
guy?
I love?
And by the way, NotJay joined us. Thanks, boss. And real quick, shout out, if you guys saw the intro, that cool jazzy music, Here's the man.
Good job.
You're welcome.
And because of that game, I went and bought all 3 of these Civil War area movie games.
Oh, what's that first one there, Jeff?
These are Mike Ranella's Civil War games. Not
Okay.
War but Murder,
Oh,
Lee's Greatest
interesting.
Victory, and Birth of a Legend, The 7 Days.
So that Stalingrad game was my first exposure to Mike Ranella designs. I wonder if those are very
He
similar.
is phenomenal. But
He's a very nice gentleman too.
this Herman Luttman game is going to contest them things. I got a question for Diego. So, Diego, you say that Eric is your brother. Did Eric play football for Permian High School in Texas in the late 1980s? You know where I'm going with that. Eric Chavez, that played linebacker for that team that they made the movie about.
Yep.
What movie is that?
Friday Night Lights.
There's also Oakland Abe's Golden Glove, Eric Chavez too.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Good point.
Yeah, that's the Eric Chavez that I knew.
Hey,
In high
good
school,
reminder,
that's what I was
the
called
Major League
right
Baseball
there.
team.
Yep. Oh yeah. Bunch of boxers too with that name.
Yeah, play testing's fun and it's good. You don't,
It is.
why it's cool that if you're writing the rules to play test yourself because you're trying to figure out how you want the rules to affect the game or whether you don't want the rules to affect the game.
Right.
But then you got to get somebody else. I mean, you have to have that third party opinion of your game, I think, unless.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say even if you're building off an existing system, making a new battle, maybe you might get away with it. But I still say you got to have somebody play test.
Oh no, yeah, I'm going to go with you on this, Jeff. I am a big believer that everything needs to be play tested,
Right.
because there are so many. So when I play test, and I've been fortunate enough, I'm friends with some of the people at AEG, and I play tested some games. I'd go up to LA and play test some games for them or with them. And one of the things I try to do is I look at playing games the way maybe the designers don't expect it. Right?
Sure.
So I'm trying to do stupid strategies that aren't going to work, but we're going to prove it doesn't work, because what if that one time I do some combination or find that loophole in your game and break it? Because if you're not doing the play testing, and most people, you tell them the rules, they're going to try to play your game based on what you tell them to do. And I'm a contrarian, as you well know.
No, not you.
No, not at all. I do get along with everybody, but I have a bit of a question things, and
But that's why I think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
But that's why I think blind play testing is so important, because even with the most rough of rules, you give it to somebody, right? And if they can't play a game, dude, or if they can't figure out this how to get from point A to point B, you can start fixing things, because if you're always teaching people live, or I don't know, through a vessel or a tabletop, that's much simpler. It's much simpler to teach someone a game than it is for them to figure out through rules only. So I think both should happen.
Well,
I
it
think
also gives that person some knowledge when you're helping them. You're explaining a rule to them, and maybe you're showing them where it is in the rule book. All of a sudden, 20 minutes into you teaching, they know how to use the rule book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think. Okay, not to be too much of a contrarian here. I do play testing sometimes to test the rule book, which I think is different than testing the game. And what I mean by that is early stages where there's a lot of changes to the game, I very rarely make a very detailed rule book. I will tell people, here's the basic mechanics, here's how things work. And if I can get my game simplified where I can vocalize and people can jump in and start to play and they can learn the game, that tells me that the mechanics are pretty smooth. It's not until you start getting edge case scenarios or card combinations or situations that If you write a rule book, it's not going to be in there anyway, because you don't think about these things until somebody plays it. And you either design it out, fix it, or you go, that becomes a feature
Right.
of the game. And then you write the rule to deal with it.
Yes, I'm going to bail. Todd's going to.
Okay.
He's still trying to learn this OSD, and he's asked me to come over and help him with that. Hey, Eric, it was good talking with you, man. And don't put your picture up there, because some of your comments, I'm afraid if I see how good looking you are, I might flip the camera.
Very nice talking to you, Jeff, too.
Thanks for hopping in, buddy. I appreciate it.
Jeff, you take care, bub.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, like I said, he's kind of a playtester extraordinaire. So it was nice to kind of, even though we're not talking playtesting per se, I mean, we're kind of are a little bit, it's nice to hear his thoughts when it comes to what we as designers can expect when somebody accepts what level of prototyping we might have. I mean, he's talking about a game that they sent him where he had to print the maps and the counters, which is, a commitment. And you're only going to get that from a certain level of people that you're working with on your design of things.
And to be a further contrarian here, right? I'm not talking about super detailed rule set.
Mm-hmm.
Just clear concepts for the rules, as in, like, this guy was asking for playtesters, right, on Twitter. Reached out to him. Hey, can you send me the stuff? I'll take a look at your game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guy sends me the stuff. It's 20 pages, and it's a prototype, right? Again, this is a published designer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got games under his belt, and I don't know his games enough to tell you, okay, so this is that game he's designed in the past. Like, I'm not his audience per se, but hey, his 20-page rule book was missing the setup of the game. Like, I didn't know how to start the game.
Yeah.
So he, very nice guy. I reached out to him and said, hey, is there a page of the setup? Is there a sample of play? Because then I wanna, I don't wanna, push the guy too much,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to be nice as I can, requesting that. And then he sent me something, but it wasn't the setup. Like, he had counters, no explanation on the counters. So like, maybe he focused on the wrong things for a prototype, right? He made certain things very detailed and forgot to look at, for example, the setup, the beginning setup,
Well, again, for me, if you're doing and it sounds like what you got was kind of a blind play test, which I 100% agree that's important.
Yeah.
But I don't do the blind play testing until very late in my process because it involves me writing a rule book.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to write a rule book from the very beginning, knowing that my designs, and in some cases change 60, 70%, then I'm spending a lot of time writing rule books and not designing the game. And so I have a small circle of friends that we design games, and we get together and we can just verbalize what you're supposed to do. And if something doesn't work, you haven't written down the rules. And again, there's no right or wrong. This is just how I go about doing it. But if I was to send a game out for a blind play test, then at some point I'm going to do that with Mythic. I will get your guys' addresses, and magically there's going to be a game show up at your door probably. And I'll probably put it on Tabletop Simulator. But when I do, I'm going to have to do the rules because it's far enough along that I'm going to want that your guys' feedback from a blind play test type of view. So I think there's varying stages of your prototype. I think the first version is for yourself. Does this work? Do those miniature bases need to be that big? Is that the right card? I mean, I'll shuffle cards and pretend like I'm playing just to see how the game feels in my hand.
I do
cards,
too.
Right? Okay. There's nothing on them. I'm like, okay, that's going to boom, boom, boom. I'm going to have 5 cards. Let me lay them out in front of me. What does that feel like? I have one game that we got 9 cards wide. And we realized that we didn't want to change it because of the theme. And it deals with Navatri, which is, there's 9 knights of Navatri. I won't get into the whole design, but that game, we speed play tested it. And when you know the game and you're playing it, we could finish a game in 3 minutes. We tried like heck to get it to 2.5, and we weren't quite fast enough. But
you way streamlined that game.
Well, it's a very simple set collection game. And much like what Chris had done with running silent and making it to where as fast as you can roll your dice and make your decisions in real time, that became a mechanic of how quickly can you get cards in your hand and then rotate them to the next player, right? Without being the one that slows things down and complete your set, because there's enough decision making. There's not a lot, but there's enough that when you put a timer on it, as in peer pressure, that you're going, oh, I'm going to grab something, and then go, oh, I just handed you the card that I really wanted. And you only get that through playtesting, right? But we had the prototypes made. I think I've told this story before. I was on a phone call with work, and I work with people that we have an office in India, and we were just small talking. I said, I design games. I'm like, oh, you should design us a game. And 8 hours later, I was with my buddies playtesting it because I got the prototype. I cut the cards up, drew a little art, did all that. And 8 hours, right? But I think your prototypes go from your own copy, whatever that is, you need to work out, whatever it is, the card count, how big the deck is, what the components are. Do dice work? Do I want counters? Do I want cubes? Do I want meeples? I'm looking for the first true war game that uses meeples. I haven't seen one yet. Little green and olive gray meeples. That would be kind of cool. But then you start to polish that prototype, right? Because now you want to start taking it out to strangers, or maybe your buddies, and it gets a little bit better, but it's still not complete. And for me, I still don't even have the rules. I might sketch out the main concepts, but for the most part, it's verbal.
Yep.
And then when I go to some of the game nights, those people expect, and they don't mind if you tell them the rules and they know, and they sit down and know it's a play test.
Yeah.
But that's a much more polished version of the prototype. And I try not to have that we made a change and that's not on the card now, because that's confusing. And then that's where people can't make that connection. It's what they see is what they're trying to play, where other designers can go, oh, yeah, you made a change to that card. We understand it and we can play test it or whatever. But to your point about being organized with your prototypes, I think having that prototype being current with your design is important, even if you don't have the rules, but whatever you have on your cards or your components are there. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, also going back to just rough prototyping, right? And I know, we're visual people and we want prototypes to look good, but I really believe that in those beginning stages, the mechanics of a game is at the utmost issue there. Like that, you really want people to test out the mechanics first, because the looks of it'll come. It'll because again, just so you don't waste time. Because if you're wasting time collecting artifacts from Wikipedia, internet, sometimes you're just wasting so much time and the mechanics are not even there yet, so I know I need visuals in my games, but I do, but usually I do have the mechanics or a very good idea of the mechanics that I'm looking for,
Well, I showed you those contracts for Rosie, and I needed to physically have the card with some stuff on the top and stuff on the bottom. And I had to, in my first prototype, figure out all the combinations and so that when I was playing it in my head, I could get a feel for the math. I don't crunch the numbers as much as I do math by feel. I know that may sound weird, but sometimes you inherently know how much something comes up and you go, that's too much, or that's not enough, or I didn't see that combo come up. I need to change my card count or something. And that's part of the prototyping process.
Sure. Sure.
Prototyping and playtesting at that point is kind of merged for me, right?
Mhm.
But I needed to see the values on the top and what's it like if I flip that over, or how does that
Right.
physically look? Because that, again, goes into the tactile part of your design.
It
And
does.
you can only get that, I think, with a prototype.
Yeah.
Now, Rob says, I can't remember my rules enough to not at least draft them from the first moment. And I get that, but mine changed so dramatically. And Chris, I did leave him a teaser, NotJay, on what the game is that we're co-working on. So if you wanted to let them know, I figured you could tell them.
Oh, we want to spring it on them.
It's up to you. They asked, and I said, no, it's up to Chris. He wants to tell, he can. I was saying how we had a really good 2 hours back and forth, and how this has changed from our original thought with the 55 card limit, and where we're at on the prototyping process is about to make a physical copy.
Yeah. So, as anybody that's watched even 30 minutes of any of my shows, or whether I'm here with you this year, the 100 and almost 150 of on my channel, and the damn near 200 I had over at the War Room with Rocky, knows that I love World War II naval combat to the point where I've designed my own game, and luckily some of our fair viewers and others have done their best to look at it, tear apart, and caused me to crawl into a corner and cry. No, I'm kidding. It's not that bad.
So I saw you in the corner crying, but it wasn't for that reason.
Right, exactly. No, there was other reasons.
It was the Mandalorians.
Yes, it was. Anyway, so I thought, what is just kind of a thought process. Just as a thought process, what could be done if we took just the basic the basic premise of Magic the Gathering and overlaid World War II naval combat to it? Would it be a good game? Could we make it into a good game? Or initially thinking me, and then we started talking to Hissy, and we have talked probably in the last 7 days. We probably have discussed it for about 5 hours. And we've come to the conclusion that if we're going to go with a 55 card limit of, we went from this grandiose, oh man, it's going to be great. We're going to have all kinds of different this and things, and like we've pared it down to, okay, if we do 55 cards, we're basically going to do a carrier battles. Yeah. We're not going to have any other surface ships. We're not going to have.
Let me interrupt you just a little bit. And part of our conversation was, I had an idea for a game, and so we were going to share ideas. And Chris was giving me his idea, and I'm like, toss mine out the window. I like his better. Not toss it, set it aside. I'll come back to it because
we're going to toss it. Wait, no, hold on. It just
dang,
we'll put it right here.
That's a shinier object. I like that. And so we started talking about Magic, and I started to add kind of how L5R worked, where we had regions you had to defend, and we had this idea where we're going to have ports that you have to defend, and islands, and where you can do invasions. And like I said, this is going to be 100 cards.
Easy, or more.
And at some point, we will design that game.
Yes.
But with the 55 card limit, we realize that when we have resources that you have to tap and different types of aircraft.
Can't use the word tap.
Oh, I thought I was going to say something I shouldn't say.
No tapping.
No, can't use tap. I mean, we can take the mechanics, we can strip them down, use them the way we want to use them, but we
We
can't
need a
use them like
naval
that.
term.
Well, like I said, deploy.
Deploy? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So you
We're
deploy it at 90 degrees.
yeah.
You're looking at the horizon. You turn it horizontally.
You go. So we went from Chris doing a design on his own to me hijacking it, and big grandiose idea, which I still think is a viable game, and down to
Oh yeah, absolutely.
the core, which is now going to be much smaller to fit within those 55 cards. And we're starting to prototype that. And we wanted to have uniqueness. We didn't want it just to be U.S. battleship or U.S. carrier. We wanted to have each of the ships have some flavor tied
Some
in,
uniqueness.
some historical aspect to it. And so we're at the point now where we're going to come up with the cards, put it on TTS, and start play testing it here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, so that we can get this entered fairly quickly. But as far as the prototyping goes, I think because it's all cards, and Chris and I aren't, or we can go down to the pub and have a beer and play with a physical copy, that this will be my first design that I've done exclusively on Tabletop Simulator. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
And
So,
yes, at some point, tell Mike, there will be battleships. Trust me.
Very nice. And since
Oh,
I
there-
was the
there
person that planted that seed on your brains, I like to be one of the first ones to play test it.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Are we going to have a solo bot? Not that we need to do a design session right now, but that's maybe.
Interesting.
But yeah, we
Good.
wanted to simulate the how much of your aircraft that you put on cap, how much do you we're going to have a lot of fog of war, because that was very much in all sea battles. Where are they?
Yeah,
And,
there's a whole lot of where the hell are they?
yeah, Warmont. It's boat talk night. Boat talk, not boat talks. Anyway, so Chris, a little late to the show. What's your prototyping process like? We've been kind of sharing some of our techniques and some of the crafting aspect that we like. What do you do?
So I was introduced to graphic design my junior year of high school when I took a graphics design class.
Okay.
It was a year-long class. The first semester we did old-fashioned screen print prep, old-fashioned offset printing prep, making the tins that go on the big drum to
Very cool.
and you had to make you had to make the black, the cyan, the
Okay.
yellow, magenta, the CMYK, each plate being different, because we actually had a printing press, and it was a small one, but we had a printing press in the classroom.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
And it's where I was introduced to the Macintosh. We had 2 Fat Macs in 1987 in the classroom. They were massive. They were the Fat Macs. And for those that don't know, the Fat Mac was the Macintosh with 512 kilobytes of RAM. They could be upgraded to a whole megabyte.
A whole megabyte.
And
That's
we
crazy,
had,
Tom.
and it was up, and they were upgraded to the 20 megabyte hard drives. So it had the 800K, it had the 800K floppy.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of having the second 800K floppy, they had the 20 megabyte drive. Yeah, yes, Warmut, it did. It did.
Well, hold on.
So
For those that are listening to the podcast, Minnie Warmut says, "Wow, I figured Chris' graphic design class involved a chisel." He's
and
not
everybody's
wrong.
laughing. Laugh it up, fuzzball. As one of my favorite characters of all time would say, said to his counterpart. for those that know, they know. Anyway, so the second half. Oh, and there was photography in there as well, and we learned how to actually. And I had actually taken a photography course the previous year at a different school, where we learned how to, and furthered that in this class, learned how to develop black and white film. So, we had a dark room, and the chemicals that smelled like 3-day-old chicken fat. So, Misa no likey. Telemachus just said Jar Jar? No, not at all. Anyway, but the second half of the school year, the second semester, was computer-aided design, because by 1987, Apple had come out with not only the Macintosh, but the laser printer that was reasonably priced for the time.
Right.
It was still the laser printer was still $3,000. The computer was a $5,000 computer with the upgrades on it. Killing me, Vigilant. Killing me. Anyway, so we were learning about desktop publishing. So we learned all the processes that you had to deal with from Gutenberg's day up till the late 80s, and then we were able to start learning the cutting edge. And why I'm going through all of this long, detailed process of telling a story is that my process I love, and in fact it's something I'm doing right now, is I'm creating cards for Con Sonar. It's so these are the cards that they produce, and while they're nice, they're way too big.
Oh wow, yeah.
To fit into card, these. So what I'm doing is
you want to show that a little slower, that card trick?
Well, this is for a completely different game. This is for.
But you're basically prototyping somebody else's game to some degree,
right? Well, this is for Fistful of Lead Starfighters. This card is going to have all the information for this miniature.
Oh, okay.
That's a cool miniature.
Everything I need to know about that ship is going to be on this card.
Perfect. So is that controlled by one person?
In this sense, yes. This one ship is going to be controlled by one person.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
And so what I've got here is I've got the type of ship it is, the pilot and co-pilot or RTO, ship systems, the pilot traits, the weapons that the ship has, the type, whether they're shooting or in a dogfight, and then their shock and damage. And you're saying, well, but yes, it is Vigilant. It's a Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, it's new series being mid-early 2000s. And people say, well, but how am I going to know, evasive countermeasures? Well, I put on the back. Here are the rules for evasive countermeasures.
Oh, cool.
And here's the rule for reinforced structure.
I want to play that.
For pilot traits.
I'm serious, because I don't play a lot of skirmishes. This looks cool.
Now,
let me point something out. Hold that up again, Chris, real quick. That is a card sleeve for like collectible cards. It's not super flimsy.
Yep.
Right.
You got it to fit in there, so you can then use a grease
I can use a
pencil
dry
or
erase
something.
or a
Sure.
Vis-a-Vis to
Mhm.
knock off the
And
stuff.
even though this isn't his game, this is a form of prototyping, as far as I'm concerned. Right?
Oh,
You're taking
absolutely.
something
Yeah.
and creating
and-
something
and-
for you to play.
I've gone through a couple of iterations of
It's a lot of time.
those cards.
Yep.
So these were too small, as you can see.
Right.
Actually, no, these are the ones that are the right size. But I had
Yeah.
some that were too small, and then I made some that were too, like here I made them too big.
Yeah.
Chris, you should make a game like a card game, like something like this. I'm
Well,
serious.
he's already started on
I'm
the.
serious.
He's already started on the card art for our game.
Look, mini Ocean Thunder.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
That's exactly what we're doing with the card game. It's
Yeah, it's going to be
yeah.
Ocean Thunder, the Pacific. Or
this
something like
this
that.
is what I do. This is I love
Yeah.
sitting here, and now by no means am I a graphic artist,
Same
but
here.
I put together things in a way. I look at other people's designs and say, I think I can tweak that a little to make it work a little better. Now,
Sure.
to be fair, here let me pull up some of the other work I have done.
There you go. It's a good name, Vigilant.
The 13th colony. There you go. Let me pull up some of the other, because at one
Now
point
put you
in
on solo
time,
boss.
well, I'm going to be doing a screen share when I find what I'm looking for.
Oh, then you don't need that.
No. So
this goes back to our point about crafting and prototyping. Even though he's doing it for another game, it's a skill set that you're going to take into your own designs, which is what he's going to. I think he's going to show with the game design that we're working on. He's already started the card layout.
Yeah, so I'll show you that one first, and then show you some of the other cards that I've designed. Open recent. Here we go. Okay, so present, window. There we go. Boom. Okay, go ahead and So it's a strip right off of Magic the Gathering, but it's this. What took me the longest was to find the proper photo, and then
Scale it
properly,
Mm-hmm.
so it looks right, and fits in the right dimensions. Now, obviously, if we ever go to press, we're going to have to either make sure that like the photos we use are all from the Naval Archives, because the photos from the Naval Archives are in the public domain because they're from the U.S. military.
Right.
We just have to note that that's where they're from, or we're going to have to pay somebody to, do all the artwork for us, which can be a pain in the ass. So that's one of the things.
AI.
What?
AI.
Oh, well, yeah, there is that. Let me see here.
Topic for another night.
Open.
So literally in our first design conversation, he's doing this while we're chatting.
Oh yeah,
that's how quick the prototyping process starts. We start talking,
for me,
he
absolutely.
starts crafting.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I had a couple of things put together already for the jam. It's the ideas, right? They pop up, so you gotta
Yeah.
put them down.
You
Some,
gotta put them down.
Okay, so here is this is for Fistful of Lead. Each player, in a normal Fistful of Lead game, each player controls anywhere between 3 and 8, or as many as 12 characters. Most of the time, it's 5.
Okay.
So this is one of the crews that I put together for one of the scenarios I've made. And what we've got here is Han's crew. And what we can see here that I've got, let me get a little closer in. So I've got Han Solo. He's a galactic hero. He's leader. He's cool-headed. He's lightning fast. He's lucky. He's tactical. This is his weapon. And then again, I've got it on the sheet here what all of the different rules are and the statistics for their weapons. There's Chewbacca, and then here are the.
And for what game is this for?
This is Fistful of Lead Galactic Heroes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
This is cool.
And came up with the names. The little dots up here on the back of each miniature.
Again,
love
crafting,
that.
man. Love the crafting
Just that lados there. It's awesome. It's very funny.
I've got to clean my room.
Well, if not, Eric's going to get on you about it.
I will.
He went on a rant about how we all need to be clean and organized.
So I worked for an Apple authorized service provider for a while, and they sent iPhone batteries in these boxes, and they're perfect for
Wait,
storing.
iPhone batteries, you said?
Yeah.
How many? A billion?
They would fit 5 in a box.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Oh,
because,
that's
fully padded.
Yeah.
But they're great for
Oh, absolutely.
holding miniatures.
Oh, that's perfect.
So those dots on the cards are let me find here. Here we go. No, where are you? Here we go. So the dots on those cards are representative on the dots on the back of the characters.
Oh, I see.
So I can tell that
Nice.
this is Vash Katsur.
Right.
Okay.
Right away. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, obviously, I don't have dots on the heroes because, Han Solo is Han Solo.
Yeah, right. You know what he looks like.
You can
Chewbacca's
tell.
Chewbacca too, probably. So.
Oh yeah, you can't miss.
Yeah.
Chewbacca.
Yeah. 10
but,
feet tall, furry thing.
Yeah. The walking carpet. Someone get this walking carpet out of my way.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I've created, so every time that I create a Fistful of Lead scenario, I create a sheet like this. And it's important to have a sheet like this when you go to a convention and someone's never played the game before. Because that's my goal, is to get people to play this game. Whether it's the game I've designed, like Ocean Thunder, or it's a game somebody else has created but I want to promote. It's got to be visual. The game table itself has got to be visually pleasing. The components have to be visually pleasing. And not only that, they have to they've got to help the player. And so on the back side of that sheet, because it's a regular 8.5 by 11, on the back side of that sheet, I've got the quick reference chart. Or not the the quick reference sheet.
Yeah,
that's very helpful.
Yeah.
I love blades
so it's
done
all
correctly.
It's all right there.
So earlier on, we were talking.
Very nice.
About,
good job.
Your prototypes being pretty or scribbly notes on toilet paper, and where in the development cycle that those kind of prototypes fall into. And it sounds like when you're going to a con with your game and you're prototyping it because it's 30 odd years old and been through so many phases of its development, that you're at the point of making a pretty prototype to ease the playing experience of the people that are playing it, that aren't necessarily playing it as play testers because they're going to a con and you're playing it as a full-fledged game at that point, even though it's unpublished. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me
Makes sense.
do this here real quick. Hold on.
Nice, Charles.
All right. So still in the prototyping process because it's still under development technically. Y'all have seen y'all have seen my one of my very first versions of the ship information chart.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right here, USS Missouri. Slapped this. I literally slapped this together in about 15 minutes. And I'm not talking about the drawings. I'm talking about the layout of the boxes and lines and whatnot.
Right.
The drawings took about 30 seconds, as you can tell. Well, this is where I am now. Yeah, the carrot. This is where I am now with that SIC. Same ship, but we went from this in 1990 whatever to this in 2000 whatever.
It's very clear.
And it's just it's and I look at it immediately and I see a problem. I don't know if anybody else sees it. But I see a problem.
On the current one?
On the current one.
Oh, now I'm looking, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but okay.
The ship isn't centered.
Oh.
Yeah. Came out of the line
I'm
a little
so
bit.
attuned to making sure it looks good.
Yeah.
That
you know what? I don't even want to play test it till that gets fixed. I'm gonna be honest. Because what if I hit it outside the box? Does that mean I don't hit your ship?
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, that's no good.
That's mean. That's mean.
So yeah, it's for me, it's when I get to the point of I am presenting the game at a convention, even if it's a private gaming function,
right?
Like the one coming up in July with my brother. I want to make sure that and these guys are my friends. I've known them obviously I've known my brother his whole life. I've known Chris Copeland since 1987, 1988. There you go. So, I've known him for decades. I've
See
known,
Rob.
Later, boss.
Take care, buddy. I've known him for decades. I've known all of these guys for decades at this point, but I still want to present the best possible product, no matter what game I'm presenting. Whether it's Con Sonar, which is a free game you can download off of Facebook, or it's some version of Fistful of Lead that is a fully published and purchasable game. What a Tanker is another one. I've got anybody that's going to be playing with me on the 4th of July. I'm going to send them a PDF file of the tank dashboard of their choice.
Yay.
Now I didn't design it, but I've manipulated it some to make it work for me.
Cool.
You know, it's a way for me to, like you said, where other people love to paint, I love to do this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
To me, this is as much to the hobby as this is.
Oh, totally. 100% agree. And I think through this conversation, things that, as I'm saying it, seem obvious, but I never took the time to think about, is that our prototypes go through a natural evolution, right? From crazy ideas in our brain to sketches that may only mean something to us, that
Right.
over time and play testing evolve into a better representation of what that game's going to be. And again, you missed it earlier, Chris, I was going on and on about how the tactile feel of your game you get through prototyping. And I went on, and then I caught up with chat, and 10 minutes earlier, Richard already made the point. And I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Because he's ahead of us. He's just ahead of us 2 steps.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think, and we're getting a little over 2 hours here, so I'm gonna wrap this up in a few minutes. So if there's any final thoughts that you guys might have on just the kind of the prototyping process, anything you want to add, Eric?
Put them down fast.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. It's
You hear
know,
that,
the
right?
back of your
Fail
brain.
fast, fail quickly. Right?
Well, but that's
Learn.
exactly what it is. You know, the faster you put it down, and you know, like you were saying about the physicality of a game, you put things in front of you, or TTS, whatever. Test it out, push it. Is this fun? Do you have a friend? Ask a friend, hey, mind playing this with me? You know, make up something, get a deck of cards, whatever it is your game is about. You know, just get the, you know, just the basic mechanics of it and try it out. You know, and at least that way, you know, you get to talk about your game. You know, even if the mechanics don't work, the graphics don't work, but you're talking about it. You know, and in your brain, you're already designing. The designing might not be on paper or in front of you yet, but the more you talk about it, the more you research, the more you tell people about your game, the more you're developing, you know, that game, you know, until it becomes a physical thing, you know.
Yeah, well, and for me, that physical, like I said, for me, it goes from concept in my brain to in my notebook to a physical, even if it's real rough, and goes into the cigar box and all my prototype bits. And that's when, for me, it's a real game, right? If I put it up on the shelf, I come back to it. Having that prototype gets me back into thinking about that game, much more so than just maybe some raw notes, at least for me.
Yeah.
I got just as a one last show and tell.
Yeah. No, if we need to go a little longer, that's fine. I'm just.
Yeah, this was when I was going to use. This was before the Battlestar Galactica game came out by Ares. This was before I got a hold of Fistful of Lead Starfighters, and I was going to use the Star Wars X-Wing miniatures rules to play Battlestar Galactica. I was going to buy the ships from Bergstrom Studios. And, you know, I came up with, you know, these are, you know, different things that you could do with a ship. In Battlestar Galactica, they have it where you're moving the ship this way, but it's facing like this. Just like you can, you know, just like it would be in real space. So what that icon was telling you is that it has that ability to although it's moving in direction Y, it can be pointing in direction Z.
Okay.
Right. Then it's got an evade, which is something you can do in the game, and you can do a barrel roll, which is a thing you can do in the game, and you can do a boost, and
Now these are
boost
cards
grade.
you created, correct?
I created this card based off of some ideas from other games, but yeah.
How'd you
Richard
find a
says
picture
enjoy
of
creating
me?
What's that?
How'd you find a picture of me?
Oh, I'm really skilled at finding photos of handsome individuals. Richard says enjoy creating your prototypes. If you are having fun with your prototype, there is that more likely that others will also have fun interacting with your game. Absolutely. And like I said, I don't like painting. I paint because I have to. And I'm not saying that other people are making me paint. Again, when I go to a convention or I go to a game day, or even just down to the game store on a Saturday afternoon, when I present a game, whether it's Ocean Thunder that I'm running myself or it's somebody else's game such as Fistful of Lead, I am representing Wiley Games when I present that game. I'm representing myself when I present Ocean Thunder, and I want people to have an understanding that this is a quality product that will provide enjoyment because of what they're seeing. I could easily go down and run a game and have the guys just like this, but I think people have more fun when they look like this.
Agreed.
And so if I'm gonna take the time to make do the part I don't like, which is painting the miniatures, I'm going to make sure that the part that I do like is going to look good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So prototype. I mean, you're never done prototyping, even once you've published. You're still prototyping because you're still looking at ways to better the presentation of the game.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And
so you went from concept. Sorry to interrupt you, Eric.
You're good.
So you were driving home. We told the story before, and you came up with your sub game, right? Running Silent. How quickly did you prototype that? Was that the same day, next day? And I know there's not a lot. It's a postcard game, but still.
Right. So we got home. Oh, we left. We left there because it was coming back from March to Victory. We were there, and I was there until about 11 o'clock. Went back to Liberty, which was about a 30-minute drive. So we left there about 12:30. We were home by about 4.
Okay.
By about 8:30 that night, I had the card. I had it completed
within a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually it was.
When you're done, I'm gonna big myself up and share something as well.
From point of, oh shit, I got to get this done, to it's posted on the Game Jam was less than 12 hours.
Nice. I love when that happens. When a plan comes together, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So this was my Game Jam.
There you go.
This I did, and I have this thing where I love to make font. I make my own font. So
nice.
Yeah, I got a little carried away there. Because
Oh,
if you
looks
notice,
good. I like it.
this is the way the game's supposed to be. But
Mhm.
I got the picket stars on the should be up here,
Oh, good,
and
man.
ended up on the bottom. But hey, it's a prototype.
Exactly.
But yeah, I very quickly what I wanted the game to be so I could play. I did this just for myself
Yep.
because I
Yep.
knew this wasn't going to be the final art. But again, going back to why we prototype, and a lot of times, and probably why we design games, is because of the craft of it, right? I mean, we're creative types, and that goes into what Chris is doing with his cards, the sketches that you shared. And I'm telling you, dude, you're an artist. It's just with your little sketches. I wish I could draw silhouettes or outlines of humans as well as you did. I was looking at that going, dang, I'm jealous. Because you could do a game with that. The quality of your sketches is good enough. I've seen video games that use that style of sketch art. So it's on par with that. And your brother says he's a graphic artist. So maybe it runs in the family. I don't know.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I try to do stuff that works for me, and I talk about mechanics and not graphics that much, but here I am, 4 days in, trying to figure out a map for this game that's coming up, right? Like spending hours like on this map thing, and
At 11 by 17?
11 by 17.
Nice.
11 by 17, yeah, and I hate it, but so far, it'll have its iterations, right? It'll change, but yeah, no, I definitely agree with Richard here when he says, you need to enjoy your prototyping, you need to enjoy the process, right? Like with my U-boat game, I probably took a couple weeks on my case, because it was a more like I haven't really put together rules, I haven't put together a game, uh, for a while now. And when the jam popped up, I had an idea of things I wanted to do, but then again, I wanted to do research. I wanted to find out, the things that I was completely unaware of, and try
Right.
to simulate it better into the game I was creating. So I took a couple of weeks to finalize it. But I'm not gonna lie to you, the I'm gonna say 70% of the game was done within a couple of days.
That was like me, and I procrastinated to the point I had to push the deadline back a week.
Yeah, the graphics,
Same.
tell you the truth, that's what took the longest.
Really?
Because I didn't know, because I knew the positioning of things that I wanted. Like I wanted the sub
Mhm.
and the crew to be in the bottom of the page, for example. And all the info for the sub was going to be in the bottom of the page. Because in my brain, I'm like, why is it in the bottom of the page? Because I'm representing a sub underwater. Everything above that line where the crew starts right there is
Uh-huh.
water. In my brain, call me weird.
No,
But
no. We all kind of see our games in a certain way, and it's cool to hear the
yeah,
insight of
yeah,
how your layout came about.
right. Because the top of the page is the map, right? With the water. Oh, that looks nice. Oh, whoa. What is this?
So, talking about creating and prototyping, um,
Oh, that looks cool.
for right after Star Wars X-wing came out,
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody do a Death Star trench.
So why don't you
Game.
describe what's on the screen? I'm trying to remember we're doing this as a podcast as well. So, Chris, if you want to describe
Yeah.
what you're doing here.
So, for those watching at home or listening at home, I created 2 3-foot by 3-foot play surfaces with graphics that are reminiscent of what the surface of the Death Star would look like.
Uh-huh.
Those two are then connected by a 6-inch wide by 4-inch deep trench, all made out of foam core.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
So for those that don't know what foam core are or is, it's 2 pieces of poster board that is that sandwiches a piece of extruded foam, and it's about 5 millimeters thick. And what I did is I got these boards and laid out the
So I see a scale of some sort, some dice, and some miniatures between the two, with the gap between the two 3-foot boards to represent the the elevation change on the Death Star.
So you got the different starfighters, the X-wings and the TIE fighters. I even made little paper. This is, of course, well before 3D printing, but I made little paper gun towers.
Nice.
Ultimate crafting here.
Oh, absolutely. It was crafting.
Nice.
Here's a shot down that trench.
Oh, nice. That just looks sweet.
You know what? Yeah. That just feels like the movie. Dude,
yeah, it does.
Total success. Just looking at, so he's got a photograph of the channel with miniatures in it, and it totally looks like it's shot straight from the movie.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
you got Darth Vader's TIE fighter with his two TIE fighters, about to shoot down gold leader there, the Y-wing gold leader. Even had the Millennium Falcon making his appearance, and this was a full-blown X-wing game. This is well before Fistful of Lead Starfighters ever came out.
Okay.
Here's the final scene where you've got Millennium Falcon coming down with Darth Vader in front with one of his TIE fighters, with some Y-wings and X-wings in front of it.
Nice.
Did you paint this, Chris, or does it come?
No. So these are Fantasy Flight Games X-wing, the miniatures game. So all of the miniatures are already painted. I despise the term pre-painted. They're painted.
Yep.
But I did the that's my little nephew from 10 years ago? Holy crap. He's much older and snarkier now. But what I did do is I went in, and the designs for the surface was generated, and I bought the files, but I didn't and I added the it's called the stay on target line, and instead of using in Star Wars as a miniature game, you use templates to show what your how far you're flying or that type of thing. Well, instead of that, once you got into the trench, each turn you would move one line forward.
Okay.
Right.
And you couldn't fire until you got to a certain line. And there was actually 2 lines. There was one closer and one farther away. And the one farther away, you were less likely to hit. So you needed to hit a critical, whereas the one closer line was allowed you to roll a hit or a critical.
Interesting. So I have go ahead.
And the reason why you had the 2 lines is because you were pushing your luck. Because the longer you were in the trench, the more likely you were to get shot by the gun towers.
That's like a mini game unto itself.
Yeah, it's an RPG. It's an RPG.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it was we like to have one big game per weekend where everybody gets to play.
Yep.
And we had I think we had 8 or 9 people playing around the table that night.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
That's fun.
So, so yeah. So this kind of shows how it's built. So what you're seeing here,
You got storage underneath.
yeah. So it's designed to be torn down and stacked flat.
Oh.
So what you've got is I got white duct tape that I encircled the trench with.
Of course you did.
But I didn't tape it together. I just put the duct tape on top, because then what I did was, when I got there, I folded the trench up and put more duct tape over the duct tape. So when I go to to tear it down, I remove the duct tape and it doesn't stick to the foam core, because it's going to remove from the duct tape that's already on the foam core.
All right.
And then the pillars here are foam core also, with L brackets, just metal L brackets. And the metal L brackets just fit into a little Star Wars lunchbox I've got.
Oh, nice. Hey, we showed my lunchbox earlier, so
Yeah,
lunchboxes are it for prototyping.
So yeah, this all tears down and fits. It's maybe not even 3 inches thick.
Wow.
You
still have it?
Unfortunately, it got lost it didn't get lost. It got destroyed in the many moves that I've had between then and now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a shame.
But it's now that I know what I'm doing. You're talking about prototyping. There was a prototyping process just for this.
Oh,
just
totally.
to get where I am.
Oh no, dude, that's why I let you go on, because this is on topic. Otherwise, we would have cut this.
Yeah, I know. No, you wouldn't, because this is cool to look at.
It is cool. I wouldn't cut it. I don't got the
But
backbone.
now that I know the process, I could have this built. I could have this built again in a weekend.
And with that, I have a suggestion here. So when we have our first postcards from the front convention, we're gonna need you to do this so we can play during the convention.
We'll actually use starfighters.
That is such a good idea. Postcards from the front convention. Okay,
I think we got to do it.
So
that's going to be in San Diego. I'm telling you right now.
So here is the setup. You have on one side you had the
hold on. Let me add it back to the stream.
Yeah. In the yellow, there's these 2 yellow boxes.
So there's the 2 3-foot pieces of the board. There's the trench. On opposite corners of the 3-foot, there is a yellow rectangles for deployment.
Right. And in that deployment area is for the rebels. That's where your X-Wings and your Y-Wings start.
Okay.
Then towards the trench, there's a red line running.
I can see it actually in the
image. Not perpendicular, parallel to the trench.
Yeah.
About 6
inches
inches
about
out.
6 inches out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And behind, that's where the TIE fighters start, behind that line. You'll notice that there's no Millennium Falcon and there's no Darth Vader.
Yeah.
On the table right now.
Yeah.
That's because they don't come on. Darth Vader doesn't come on until like turn 4 or 5, and Han Solo doesn't show up until turn 7 or 8.
Okay.
Because I'm wanting to give that feel of the movie, the last scene of the movie, the trench run. So you can't have Darth Vader there immediately because he wasn't there immediately. And you can't have Han Solo there immediately, from the start, because he was flying away with his, Quatloos. And then Chewie talked him into, didn't talk him into it. Basically, browbeat him and said, "You're a horrible person if you don't go back and help."
Yeah.
Because Chewbacca's like that.
Space.
But yeah, it's this game using the X-wing rules took 4 or 5 hours, but with starfighters, I would say it would be done in 3, easy. And that's a testament to it. And that would be with 10 players with 5 ships each.
Okay.
So you're using the full 52 deck of cards. You don't have 2 cards dealt each time at the beginning.
So let me ask you this. I know with Ocean Thunder, you had 3D printed an anatomically correct Savo Island.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is just amazing unto itself. How long into now was that, and we're talking about the lifestyle, the lifeline of
Here you go.
your prototypes. All right, there's a quarter of it, right? Let me do this. So there's a piece of it. And he actually went and got some data from some science website or something that actually had the terrain that he put into the 3D printer. So it's anatomically correct Savo Island.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. But we're looking at later stages of the prototype to where it's more of a finalized version of the game at this point, right?
Right.
I mean, you didn't do this early on, did you?
Oh no. No.
Okay.
I did this year.
Nice.
But I meant the idea of having.
This was this year.
Yeah. Okay. So your point of, even though this is a 30-year-old game,
I'm
Savo
still
Island
coming up with
is
ways
level.
to make it happen.
Yeah. Exactly. Alrighty, guys. We're at 2.5 hours. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep these closer to the 2. 2.5 is fine. We can talk for hours. I love this stuff. And again, I want to thank Eric for being on, for
My
Hexy
pleasure.
in, and obviously my co-pilot and NotJay, who created such wonderful music, and you're going to get to see it here in just a second. I just got to find it. And next week, scheduled to have Mark Walker on. So looking forward to that and talking about what he's doing with Flying Pig Games. And until next week, guys, I'll talk to you later.